Morning. I've been on travels and I will go on travels again soon. So I had this slot to come and have a chat with you. That sounds like a poem. Today I want to talk about Communication Church. For many a year, I've always had this idea, or this concept, this belief that before we can ever become a unification church or a unification anything, we have to become a communication church. That's always been very much at the kind of center of things that I'm doing in terms of just my mission, if you like, my sense of providential purpose, but also just generally speaking, before we can do anything, like in terms of unifying people, we have to learn how to communicate. And that's on all kinds of levels. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of that together. And at the same time, I'm going to be talking about, communication in a kind of, I guess, in a more, practical sense. But today, rather than getting into all kinds of practical, ideas about how to communicate, I wanted to kind of bring it right back, to strip it right back to the basics, like the real kind of starting point, if you like, in terms of communicating. So not talking about, how to pitch or something like that, or how to project your voice, or how to, do some kind of other exercises. Today, I guess, if you like, it's going to be Communication Church Part 1. And then maybe in the future I'll do Part 2 and some other kind of extension of this topic. But today I wanted to start with the basics. So before I do that, I'm going to read from this book. So I read this book. It's from Hyojinim's, basically not speeches, just when he was talking. He was like, he would sit down with people and then, some guys would just write down or record what he said. So they're kind of like it's just basically off the cuff, him talking about what he felt was important. So it's called The Culture of Heart and Multimedia, and I'm going to read you just a little passage from this book. So this is a speech, well, not like I said, not a speech, just something he was sitting down with a bunch of guys, and he started saying this. If the body and mind become one, then they can surely come to God. That is the principle of restoration through indemnity. Since the connection of our spirit to God was cut due to the fall, the body and mind are both lost. In the process of restoration, we start by bringing the body back. That is why Father is trying to regain a nation. Once that is done, setting up heaven's law will be like setting people's minds in order. Then the earth will all be straightened up. We need to create the environment in that way. What we do in the Manhattan Center is to educate the body. This begins the process of controlling the environment through the products we create. Of course, we need to make our things the best. So there is stiff competition. People in the world will use our products on their bodies because ours are better. This will be conditioned to recover their bodies. Next, we educate them. We are educating not only the body, but also the mind. Once a condition is made to win over the body, we must start educating the mind. Then if someone can find oneness of mind and body, that person will find God. That is our plan and our principled method. The principle is practical, and we must use it properly. This is the only way we can do it. So that was very much Hyojinim's conviction in terms of where do we start? It's like there's a big challenge out there, and he's talking, of course, in terms of even the nation and connecting that with this idea of the body, like restoring the body. And then through the body, reaching the mind. In other words, how can we first connect with people? If you think about even just anyone in terms of, especially young people, if you want to reach out to young people, sometimes you just have to grab them on a physical level first. You have to kind of wow them, right? You have to show them something that's going to grab them in some kind of wow, that's great. Not so much intellectually, but more in a kind of immediate sense. Sometimes if you want to really push and provoke someone, you almost try to grab them by the guts and shake them up, and then they're awake. So there's this phrase going around at the moment, to be woke, right? It's being used in politics, to be woke, to be awake, to suddenly be shaken out of your system so that you're actually aware of what's going on around you. And of course, right now, in terms of communication, there's a lot of communicating going on, and it's called the election, right? So you're getting bombarded with communication right now. This party, that party, whatever it is, and within all of that, there's all kinds of different levels of communication. Everything from somebody, who's had somebody come to their doorstep? Just one? Okay, like a counselor maybe, yeah, coming to say. And not normally, they don't have much. I mean, somebody came to my door, I won't say which party, but basically I asked them, so tell me, like, what's it about? What do you want to do? Like, they had almost nothing to say. So what do you do? I said, what do you do? You're a counselor. So I was just like, what's your role? And he said, and initially he was just kind of panicking about what shall I say now? Because someone's actually asked me the question, what do you do? And what do you propose? Like, what can you do for me? I'm your local constituent here, right? Oh, okay, he's a counselor. But the first thing that came into his head is like, I only do this part-time. And then the next thing, almost in a guilty way, he says, I get paid £9,000 a year. And normally people don't give up their salaries, right? They're usually reluctant to communicate their salary. But for some reason, he just felt he had to give up. Look, I only do this part-time. I only get paid £9,000. Please, And I wasn't even pressurizing him at all. I don't know, maybe sometimes that can be intimidating. But I was genuinely like, what do you do? What do you do as a local counsellor? Literally, I just want to know. And he just confessed a few things to me. But anyway, so there's a lot of and you've got that level on your doorstep. And then you've got things like Deepfake. Have you heard about Deepfake? So that's literally creating a person that you will see on a screen, on your computer screen or even on the TV, and they look and sound exactly like who they are meant to be, but actually it's a fake. So you've had famous ones in the last year or so. You've had Barack Obama. They did, just before the campaign started, they created a deepfake Boris Johnson and a deepfake Jeremy Corbyn. And they got them both to advocate the other's party. So that it was a publicity stunt. But you had Boris Johnson basically advocating the Labour Party, and it looks and sounds like Boris Johnson. Like, you would not know the difference. And you had Jeremy Corbyn doing the opposite, advocating the Conservatives. So, if you're watching that at home and you don't know it's a deep fake, you'll be confused. Worse than that, of course, you would be manipulated. And who knows what else. And that's what's going on around the world. You've got everything from people on your doorstep to deep fake news, all communicating, all bombarding you with something that they're trying to get you to perhaps believe, whatever that may be. So that's what's going on right now. So, before we kind of get into talking about communication, church, and how this really now comes back to us, I wanted to do a little exercise with all of you. So all I'm going to ask is, who is under the age of 30? Please put your hands up. So all those people who are under the age of 30, I want you to find an older person that you don't know and go and sit next to them. All right? So go and find an older person you don't know. Those who are over 30, you maybe have to switch around. And then maybe the elders who are maybe sitting together, can you spread out so people can come and sit next to you? All right, so spread out. Don't be in your comfort zone. It always happens. Every week, the same people come. They come and sit at the back. They want to be in their little thing at the back. Please come forward. Please swap around. Okay, so everyone's got a buddy, an intergenerational buddy. I started something very recently with my family, which I'm hoping to continue. So, everyone has birthdays, right? So yesterday was my sister's birthday, today's my brother's birthday. And birthdays, if you've got a big family, they tend to come around quite often. What I decided at the last birthday we had is, rather than just doing we always do the cake or something like that, we sing happy birthday. But I thought, what I'd like to start doing is, rather than just singing the happy birthday, I wanted each of the family members, as we go around, to say something that they admire about the other family member, the one whose birthday it is. So, if it was your birthday on that day, and you have 2-3 siblings, and your mum and dad, then each of them would say something about you that they admire, something that they appreciate, something that they feel, this is a great quality that you have. So in other words, to express something that you admire about the person. Now, today, maybe you're sitting next to someone you don't know so well, but maybe you've known them from a while, from afar, and you've understood them in some way. Or you just meeting them for the first time, and you might be just admiring them in terms of just, how that first impression is that they're making on you on this day. So whatever it is, I just want you to take a minute each to express to the other something that you admire about them. So very quickly, first of all, just decide between yourselves who's person A and person B. So just decide person A and B. So I want you to just take a couple of minutes, and then first of all, it will be person A to say something that they admire about person B. And then when I say change, and person B, just please listen. Don't feel obliged to have to interrupt them or give any more additional information. Just let them talk. Yeah, just let them talk. And then see what comes out. It'll be interesting, right? Okay, so we are going to start in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Okay, and change. So person B, it's your chance to say what you admire about person A. Okay, thank you. Please come back not to your seats, just come forward. Everyone's gone to the back now. Please come forward again if you can. So hopefully you discovered something new about yourself, maybe through the eyes of somebody else today. Something that you didn't even realize, right? There's so many ways you can do this kind of exercise in terms of just talking, communicating. I remember one of the ways that I did it, it was about a few years ago. The challenge was it was in the context of like what we're doing today. The challenge was how to tell a woman that she is fat. Because you know how that can be a big thing, right? It's like, oh my gosh, how do you do that, right? And how to do that in a way that's going to be somehow understood. I mean, it's not, obviously it can be, quite offensive, if you don't say it right. But the point was like, finding a way to say something positive, even though what you might need to actually do is say something more direct, because you care about that person, you love that person. Maybe you're concerned about that person. So even though that was, we did that in a kind of trivial way, but actually there are times when you want to say something to someone because you really care about them. But that will be part 2. I'm glad you asked. That will be Communication Church part 2, if you really want to know the answer. Okay, but anyway, there are other, there are books about these kinds of things. But the point was simply that, sometimes you want to say something to someone, and actually you feel like the best way is just to be direct. And oftentimes when I'm working with people, if I'm doing events and things like that, often I can be very direct. And it's like, and then some people might kind of like that or appreciate that. Others might find it challenging. But the thing is, I wanted to mention that because I'm going to kind of touch on it again when I start to go a little bit more into what I want to share today. So based on that exercise, and just thinking now, that was just on a personal one-to-one level, thinking about us as a movement, as a community, what do you think are some of the challenges in terms of communication? Trying to be nice and avoiding looking bad. Yeah. So, and how have we seen that manifested on other levels? So, okay, maybe you don't want to, rock the boat with somebody because they're in your community, they're like, you've known them for a while. But how is this kind of wanting just to be nice, wanting to be liked, wanting to even be popular or even important? How has that manifested itself on other levels, if you think about us as a movement?
Okay, like a number of members have been on a counselling course. I went on a counselling course, and it teaches you a couple of things. One is unconditional regard and unconditional listening. These two things are quite demanding. So you don't prejudge the person, you stay open, and you listen to them first before you tell them anything. In fact, you almost try to avoid telling them anything, but just to listen to them so that they can begin to see themselves or tune in to themselves.
Okay, I'm very direct. I'm Scottish, I'm not English, so sometimes
Scottish, yes.
I'll just say things, but I've been on the receiving end, like I've said it to one of my friends several times, and she didn't say much at the time, but she went behind my back and did some really nasty things and talked, and so that is more scary than I wasn't trying to be nice or trying to be kind or anything. I was the right thing. I told her the right thing several times. One time the police was going to get involved if I didn't tell her, but it actually came back and bit me pretty hard on the backside because, so this is another thing. You have to really be careful. What you said, like, it's literally not getting stabbed in the back, but, and so, communication, it is a thing, and but I've also been on the receiving end, like some people, like the other day, the doctor said something about me lose weight, but the thing is I'm on tablets, which make me put on weight. So I can't lose weight because the only reason I lost weight before was when he put me on a higher dose. So it really hurt when he said that to me because I can't lose weight. So the thing
Catch 22.
Catch 22. So I've also been on the receiving end of it. So it's like, I understand what you're saying about lose weight and everything, and say it in a nice way, but it is a dilemma. And this is what I found refreshing when I heard that Christian minister. He had nothing. He had no agenda. He just stood up, and that's what I meant. He just talked about God, and it was very refreshing, because that you get pastors in our church, not in this church, not in this one, but in the Unification Church, there are people there who have their own agenda on all different levels, and they're hiding, and they're very tricky, and then you can feel it, and you want, what's going on? You think, I've got loads of problems, and it's your own level, but it's not. It's actually something that's going on behind, which is getting sorted out now, I think. True Mother has picked that up. And so this is what we have to really address, because we're the people on the ground. We are the people that are trying to build our church up, but it's kind of this kind of thing up on the other level, people being tricky and not being honest to us. It's a really big thing that we have to sort out.
Okay, thank you. So, thanks everyone for sharing. I mean, even just these little points in terms of just, like we were saying earlier, Joanna's point, about just trying to be nice or, avoiding looking bad because you want to be, like I said, maybe popular or perhaps even important. I've seen that manifested in ways in which, for example, people just exaggerate their accomplishments. It's like, yeah, it was okay, but it wasn't like, So, for example, we do an event and there's maybe 5,000 people there, but actually it suddenly becomes 40,000 people. And it's like, no, there wasn't 40,000 people there. But you suddenly want to now proclaim to the world, oh, yes, no, there were 40,000 people at the rally. It's like, no, there wasn't. It's physically impossible to actually do that. And again, it's coming from this, where's that coming from? Where's this fear of like, oh, I just want to be popular. I want to be liked. I want to be important. Because so therefore this communication is basically a false advertising. It's not a deep fake. But it's nevertheless a false advertising of the actual facts. And it's coming from this place, rather than just saying, you know what, this was actually the reality. This was what really happened. And often, it's the truth which is always the better story. The truth is always the better story. Yeah, rather than trying to make up something that makes you sound or look good, just for the sake of that promotion or whatever it may be. And people are doing it all the time. But there are other things, like if you think about communication, just to expand it out of that, even on details, for example, sometimes we'll get international memos, and there'll be directions, and they're basically anonymous. We don't know who that's from. It's an international memo, like, dear leaders and da-da-da, and brothers and sisters, and la-la-la-la-la, and it's like, these are some changes. And we don't know who has actually. It's like anonymous. It's not like, and, kind regards, or yours sincerely, something, Mr. or whatever it is, It's just like, who is this person? Who's writing these international memos? We don't even know. And who is this person, actually? We don't even know their background. What have they done? How do they even become into whatever that position might be? And then we have things like, our video materials, right? Some of us are, if you watch some of our video materials, like who watches the EUME news that Mike Balcom produces? So he produces a very simple, like a vlog really. It's just him doing a simple video vlog. And then you have things like Peace TV. How many people watch Peace TV? But again, people who, when we watch those things, again, we might have, certain, I guess, issues in terms of the style or the tone, the narration, even, for example, basic things like, just the translation, Sometimes, there can be all kinds of reasons why, even though it's trying to communicate, in some ways it fails or it doesn't connect, or we feel like it's not culturally friendly for our particular sensibility. And we often say, oh, that's okay if you're in, Japan, or that's okay if you're in Asia, just generally. But for us, like Westerners or Europeans or whatever, it doesn't quite cut it, and then we'll feel slightly limited in terms of our ability to actually receive it. So yeah, I think as a movement, we try all kinds of ways to communicate, and it doesn't always work. And there's always, I guess, reasons why we can then start to think, oh, it should have been like this, or it could have been like that. And this brings me on to this first point about communication, church, which is that often when we're doing things, the tendency at first, I've seen it in various things that I've done over the past, and even recent past, is that initially there's a tendency to moan. Like we're working on something together, and the initial tendency is to start moaning about it. Like, oh, it's rubbish. Oh, that's not good. Oh, why did they do it like that? And basically to moan and moan and moan. And then basically when you're moaning, I don't know if you realize, but even when I was writing the word down, I was using swipe text on my phone. And as I was writing the word moan, but actually it came out mean, as in being mean. And I thought, yeah, that's true. When you're moaning, you're being mean. You're actually just basically becoming a bit of a nasty person because you're basically dwelling in this state of mind of just moaning about things, right? And so all of this is just a moan. And every time we're doing a big event, like I said, when I'm working on these bigger projects, we just did Albania. I was very much involved in Albania, and I would get up every morning thinking about Albania. For over a week after I came back from Tirana, I was still waking up thinking about Albania. I was waking up every day thinking about stages and trestles and risers and all kinds of things and lights. Literally, it was so very much on my mind that Jonathan, I think, can relate to this now with Chumbo. You wake up in the morning and it's just on your mind. It's like you're not, it's just, you never switch off, So, and in that process where I'm very much, and then next week I go to Johannesburg. And Johannesburg is even bigger. Johannesburg is 100,000 people in the World Cup Stadium, in FNB Stadium. So I'm just now looking at those stage plans and working out how we're going to do that event. And it's going to be 100,000 people, and we have basically one day in which to put on this big show. So when I'm working on these things, often I'm surrounded by people, international, people who are coming together. And there is a tendency at some point to start moaning about something. Oh, this isn't good and that isn't good. And you get sucked into this. And now me, I'm direct. So when I'm working, because I'm working in a combination of our brothers and sisters who are there as volunteers, and then, of course, people who are there who are basically working for us. Outside production companies, rental companies. And so, I'm kind of like bridging these two worlds and trying to get them to work together. And often when I'm doing that, I'm just doing it in a very kind of direct way. And so sometimes if like even younger people are working with me, they pick up on that and they kind of take it the wrong way because I'm being direct because I want to make sure I communicate. There is no gray area. It's we're going to do this or we're not going to do this, and it's absolutely clear. This is what we need to do. This is the time frame. So sometimes, yes, I can be direct. But I notice that some people who are working with me, they pick up on that directness, and then they think of it as a way to start also not being direct, but start to moan about things. Because, rather than actually trying to be constructive and thinking, like, how can we get things done, they start to take that as an opportunity to also somehow start being direct, but not direct in a way that's constructive, but just to put other people down. Oh, they're not good. Oh, the Koreans are like this. Oh, the Japanese are like that. Oh, the Westerners like this. Oh, the local people like that. And that's not the point. But they're already into this mindset of being moaning. So moaning can be one thing. And another thing that tends to happen as a result of that is then other people start to gossip. And gossiping can become a thing, right? Gossiping is another way of people communicating, right? So even what Helena was just sharing, you share about something and somebody else maybe leaks it out or talks about it in another way, and then suddenly it's this point of conversation in which people are gossiping. So there's a lot of give and take going on, and suddenly the word is getting out, oh, did you hear about this? Or did you hear about that? Or did you know? Oh, really? And then that's another form of communication. And that can spread like wildfire, right? Like these fires in Australia. It just starts with a little spark and boom, there you are. It's a massive bushfire, and now it's right at your doorstep. Right. So that's Chinese whispers. Yes. So it starts off as something, and it becomes something completely different. So yeah, we have moaning, and then you can have gossiping, and then there's like, and eventually that just starts, like I said, into people just complaining about this, complaining about that, and it's just complaint. Now, if you think about it as a church community, we think maybe, oh no, we're somehow maybe above that, but actually very much we can get sucked into those same kinds of, avenues of communication where we're moaning about something, we're gossiping about something, or we're just outright complaining all the time about something. Complain. Oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not so good. Oh, that Sunday service was rubbish. Or the music. Oh, I don't like this. I don't like that. Do you know what I mean? It's not good enough for me. It's rubbish. I don't even know why I waste my time coming here. You know? No, seriously, people get to that point where it's like, just complain. And that instills a certain mindset that then becomes part of how you then react and are with others. So let's look at the opposite. People often change their outlook on life when there's something really drastic happening in their life. Suddenly they realize that maybe they only have 6 months to live, right? They've got cancer, maybe even just 3 months. They've got something that's just, it's in the later stages, there's nothing they can do. That's it. And this is the only time now that they have left. And often it takes people coming to this kind of point to suddenly check on themselves and realize, maybe I don't want to be like that anymore. Maybe in this time that I have left. And remember, in any case, like Hyojinim always often used to say, and if you read this book, he often said, life is short. Life is short. So even if we have 70 years or 7 months, life is nevertheless short. And the time that you have, what do you really want to communicate? So like I said, even if you're not the greatest communicator, right? You don't have that whatever, particular skill set. Or you're not the most confident person. Maybe you're shy. It doesn't matter. Like I said, what matters really, first of all, is what do you really want to communicate? Do you want to communicate being mean and gossiping and complaining? Is that what you really want to communicate? Because it doesn't matter if you have all the skills, you have all the tools. All you're going to do is propagate hate. You'll be very good at it because you're a really good communicator. But what are you really doing? What are you really manifesting? Just more hate, more hurt. One way or another, directly, indirectly. So ask yourself, what do you really want to communicate? How do you want to change that? So think about what's the simplest thing that you can do when you want to communicate to someone without even saying a word? Smile. Yeah. Or you can give them a hug if you want to go straight in there. Why not? You can just pretend they're your friend. Just go up to somebody random. Like, Father used to sometimes say this about, going out to meet people. If you don't know how to meet people, just go out and just meet them. Just go and say hello. Just grab them, and just make out that, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you for ages. And they don't know who you are. And you're just setting up a framework to have a conversation with this guy. And it might even last just 2 minutes. But you probably in those 2 minutes will leave an impression, So often the easiest thing that we can do to communicate is just to smile. Just literally, as you are there on the train, on the bus, or going to school, whatever it is, just smile at people. I mean, it's a very simple but a very effective way of communicating. Just to give them a smile. Because often we don't realize maybe we're wearing a frown. We don't realize that that's actually somehow our, what's this? Our resting face. There's another way people express this. But anyway, it's like your face is constantly in a kind of frown. And you don't even realize it, but you're constantly wearing it. And then making that conscious thought that, I'm going to wear a smile. I'm actually just going to wear a smile. And then suddenly you're communicating something completely different. You're not moaning now. You're not meaning. You're not being mean. You're just being smiley. And people take that. And of course, the next step is hugs. I mean, if you really want to go in there. There's an Indian spiritual leader called Ma. Have you heard of Ma? She has the Guinness World of Records. She has the Guinness, the Book of Record, the world record, the Guinness World Record of giving people hugs. That is all she does. People come from all over the world. They come to a simple room. She was like, we're going to go to Ealing Town Hall next week for Chombo. She was in Ealing Town Hall, and people come from all over the world. She doesn't dress up. She has no makeup. She just wears a white sari. She's basically a celibate elderly woman, and people come to her just to have a hug, and people flood in, and they've heard about it. They've had testimonies from other people, and they just want to experience this for themselves. And I've seen it. There was somebody who made a film about it, and they wanted to do it as a kind of, it was part of the plot. It wasn't really about her, but the characters in the film went to meet her. So they arranged with her people to be able to film this. And so these were actors who wanted to come in character to come and embrace her as being in character. But you could tell, I mean, I watched that scene a few times. When they came into her presence, they stopped being a character. They stopped being this character that they were meant to be portraying and acting. And they just broke down. They literally broke down. They gave her a hug, and in the moment, they didn't even realize. It's just, you know, like you just don't even know why. But they literally broke down in her arms. I mean, maybe it's the pressure, the film and everything, I don't know. But a lot of people have this experience where they just hug her, and then they just melt. And whatever it is that they needed to shed, you know, to kind of, it was like a therapy. They can do that. So I think like Kunihiro, like when you're treating people, you're giving them this treatment, you're taking away something, taking away whatever baggage and burden, and it releases something. And she's doing something very similar, but just by embracing them, giving them basically a mother's hug. You know, that's all it is, a mother's hug. No words, nothing complicated, no PowerPoint, right? Nothing. A smile and a hug. If you communicate that, suddenly you might, you know, save someone's life who was maybe at the verge of who knows what, we don't know. But that's what we can communicate. So instead of giving them giving this sense of gossiping about people, suddenly we're starting to give hope. We're communicating hope. There's hope. Yeah, there's a way forward. Yes, it can be like hell, you know, but what you're doing is giving them a way out of hell. That's all we can do, is give people a way out. Communicate that. How can you, and again, it doesn't have to be something that is convoluted or something that's complex. So the final thing that I want to share is, in terms of these points, is often when we're communicating and we're sharing, there's a tendency to start talking about ourselves. So when you were doing this exercise and talking about the other person, the onus was very much on you talking about the other. But the fact is that often when we're talking, we tend to come back to ourselves. And when we come back to ourselves, the tendency often is also to start talking about my problems. And suddenly this conversation is now centering on me, my problems. And then, of course, I can start complaining, I can start gossiping, and I can start doing all those things that perhaps I don't really want to do. But I'm just talking about me now, and now I want, and you just happen to be there. So, Kieran, I'm now going to just vomit all over you all this stuff that you're like, AJ, where did that come from? But it's just because we're now talking and you're listening. You're listening, right? Because you're listening, I'm just going to puke up all over you all this stuff, and I'm just going to leave it with you, and you're just going to take it. See, because it starts to center just on me. And then my complaints. And, oh, did you know this? Did you know that this happened? Oh, really? Do you know what's happening next door? Do you know what happened here? La, 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 la. It's all vomiting out on you. So this is the thing. If you're going to communicate and you're going to change perhaps this mindset of just, trying to, moan, gossip, complain, the next time you communicate, and maybe I'm going to suggest this for just 1 week, try to communicate, not centering on yourself, but when you meet people, try to communicate based on how can I bring joy to them. Even just by telling them something, like, oh, that's a nice shirt. Yeah, I don't know who you are. I've just met you for the first time. Oh, I like your hair, or whatever it is, right? Just say something to make them feel great, make them feel good. Don't share your problems. Yes, we're a church community. Yes, you can come here, and there will be maybe some people who will listen and, and have empathy and share your burden in some way. But guess what? If we all are thinking about really living for the sake of others, then even in what we communicate, what we're striving to do is say, hey, you're amazing. You're great. I really admire this about you. This is what I really, even though I've known you for years, but I never told you this. You're really whatever you want to say about that person, to communicate that. Because like I said, if you only had a short time to live, maybe that's what you would want to do, right? You want to go around and tell everyone, something that you feel like, I really want to just tell you this. I've only got a short time, but I want you to know this is what I think is amazing about you. This is the quality that I've always admired about you. And you communicate that. Don't center on yourself, because then you center on all these other things and you forget about this other person. And like I said, you just end up vomiting all over them. And that's not helping. It might help you temporarily, but it's not really going to change you. It's only going to change when you start to think about others and giving them hope, giving them something to feel great about. And then suddenly you maybe come out of yourself. So like I said, that's what I really want to start with today, is just thinking about communicating. What do you want to communicate? And what are you really centering on? And therefore, just bring it back to then thinking about, I'm going to spend 1 week or 1 day, and all I'm going to do is every time I meet someone, I'm going to give them a smile, I'm going to grab them, give them a hug, I'm going to go out there and just tell people how great they are. And that's all I'm going to do. And none of it's going to be about me. And any time somebody asks me, but AJ, what about you? Are you okay? Oh, you look tired. AJ, what's going on? Are you able to? No, it's all right, I'm fine. Let's talk about you. Right? Because it's easy. Sometimes people put you in that position and they want you to start talking about you because they're worried about you. We say, it's okay. Let's talk about you. Don't worry about me for now. I want to know about you. How's it going? How old are you now? Oh, maybe it's time for you to get married. Let's go and find you a husband. Let's go. Let's go now. Let's go and find you someone. Like literally now. I'm going to, and it's like, what? Yeah, no, I know you want to get married. I know you do. I know you want to get married. And let's go and find a husband. And it's not going to be about, I'm just going to let's facilitate this. Let's make this happen. Let's go and have a conversation with someone. Whatever it is, let's just make it happen. Whatever it is that other person's hope and dream and desire, let me try and be a part of making that real. Live like that for 1 week. Let's see. I'll be back in a few weeks from Johannesburg. I'd be really interested to know, how you could do that. So final thing for me today is, like I said, I wanted to start with some basics. And the way I wanted to give this some kind of framework is, who does painting? Does anyone paint? When people learned to paint, even back in the 18th and 19th century, one of the things that they were often asked to do first was to create a still life, just like a bowl of fruit or something like this, something that was just usually on the table, and they would have to just copy it, basically, to try and make it as realistic. Or later on, of course, other artists, they went a completely different way. They tried to make it impressionistic, or they tried to make it somehow more into, an impressionistic image or a cubist image or whatever. But back in the day, when you were learning how to paint, the first thing you had to do was just paint still life. And you practiced doing still life. And still life at that time was considered, that's the most basic kind of painting. That's like what the kids do. And actually, even like it was very rare for a woman to be able to go to art school. So if you went to, if you were living in, I don't know, Denmark or England or the Netherlands, and you wanted to be an artist, you'd have to go to maybe somewhere like France, to the gallery there. And if you're lucky enough to be one of the few women to be able to come in and learn how to paint, the only thing that they would let you do is do still life. That's why back in the day, the best still life painters were women. Because actually that's all they were. They weren't allowed to paint the human form. Because the understanding was that basically still life was like the basic kind of way of, or the basic form of art. And then it was doing things like landscapes, right? You've seen landscape paintings, right? Yeah, so Constable and these guys, they did amazing landscape paintings. And then it was portraits, like painting the human portrait. And then the final stage, which was considered the highest form of art, was painting the picture of man with God. Man in action, those mythical, biblical paintings, like of God reaching out and touching the hand of man. Because this was, because a lot of art was being commissioned by the church at that time. So for them, this was the highest form of art, was man in action. So, and when I thought about this, it's like, I thought about it in terms of even filmmaking. Like, still life as a film, like just a still silent film, or a film like, these kind of big sky films, like Revenant. Have you seen Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio? It's just a big sky film. It's man in nature, but a lot of it is about the mountains, the sky, the rivers. It's like a landscape painting. And then you have portraits, which are like documentaries, like a person sitting down just talking to camera, right? That's like a portrait. And then you have these big action films, right? Man in action, superhero films. These are like, so right now you can see a similar kind of pattern in terms of like still life, landscape, portrait, man in action, man with God, biblical, epic, Superman kind of paintings. But these are films. Do you get where I'm coming from? Like this kind of idea. So, like for me, I was thinking about it in terms of films, but this analogy, I think, was, for me anyway, I felt like it's similar in terms of also this idea of communicating, or what are we communicating? So, on some level, thinking about communication as a still life painting is you spending time with yourself, being still. Be still with yourself. Get to know who you are and what do you really want to communicate. Because now those still life paintings, in the past they were considered like, oh, that's a low form of art. And now they're worth millions. And now people really can recognize that, wow, those still life paintings, they're masterpieces. But at the time they were considered like, oh, that's the kind of, that's for the juniors. But now people have accepted and understood, wow, that there's mastery in that still life. So communicate in terms of being a still life painting. Spend time with yourself. Get to know you. And ask yourself, what do you really want to communicate? And then be a landscape painting. Go out into nature. Go out into nature, spend time there, and then also expand that conversation. What kind of person are you going to be in this world? How are you going to change this world? And then think about it in terms of portrait. How are you going to go out and meet people directly? How are you going to, kind of have that kind of one-to-one, kind of conversation in terms of meeting someone and spending time with them. But based on knowing who you are, based on knowing how you want to be, and then be with that person. Don't go there and just throw up all over them. Go there being prepared with who you are, and then be able to express that in that one-to-one. And then finally, yes, communicate with God. Communicate based on this understanding of how you want to go out into the world and be in action. And for me, it's a circular thing. It's like you do this all the time, right? You spend time with yourself. You go, we're doing this all the time. We take time to reflect. We take time to maybe go out, take the dog for a walk. We go out and maybe spend and meet up a best friend in a cafe. And then we go out and maybe pray. We're doing all this stuff anyway. The idea is to think about how you want to do that and make progress. And then, like I said, come back to being with you. Then go out in nature. Then go out and meet a friend. And then be with God. Be with God and then come back to you. Go out, be in nature. Then go out and meet a friend. Or go and help someone or whatever it is. But it's this kind of circle of communication in which you're developing yourself as the communicator. So that was the thing. We're the Central London, church community. I would really like us to be this community of great communicators. Really want to encourage you to spend a week telling other people how great they are. Okay, thank you so much for listening. I will say a short prayer. Our dearest Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today's opportunity to come together and to listen to our amazing band, to, Father, hear their voices really resonating, Father, with such clarity and purity, and, Father, and a real sense of, Father, connecting us to your divine grace. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to have this space and to be able to share in this fellowship. And I hope that in whatever way, Father, I could give something today to our family, our community, that can really be able to, Father, give them also some direction or a way forward and help us, Father, to really go out and allow others to, Father, find a way forward, to literally bring them out of whatever hell that they are finding themselves in. That we can be, Father, that, Father, great communicator. I report these things and offer this prayer in my name, Ajay Rai, husband and father of a blessed central family. Arju.